So this is my shoddy attempt at making a voiceover. I'm recording this on the voice memo app on my phone, so I apologize if there's any weird background noise. There's people in the other room, my heater keeps turning on and off, and my neighbors are walking around upstairs, so there might be a lot of ambient noise, so I apologize in advance. I'm also just getting over a cold, so my voice is a little wonky today, and I'm trying really hard to get over my fear of talking to myself alone in my room. I'm sorry. This piece that you're seeing right now isn't actually the final piece, which you will see in a few minutes. This one is from 2021, so I think I've changed a lot as an artist since then. The original idea for the wolf creatures was to have them be more shadowy and vaguely humanoid in weird ways, which is why they have hands. I wanted it to have the same kind of ominous vibe of like Dapper Mouth's work, which I don't think I quite grasped originally. I thought it just looked stupid and it wasn't giving the overall vibe that I wanted. So I ended up posting it on TikTok and I asked for some feedback and I got a lot of really great responses. I was nervous that people would be mean to me, but everyone was really nice and gave me some tips on how I could improve it, and it worked. It ended up being a really positive experience for me, and that's probably one of the reasons this became such a favorite for me. It resulted in a much better piece overall. And that's not something that I think I have a lot of experience with. I'm a self-taught artist. I think I've had a lot of kind of negative critiques from people in my life that have made me very sensitive to feedback. So that experience really changed my mind and made me more welcoming to constructive criticism. This is also from a period where I was relying really heavily on references. I think references are great, but I was forcing myself to follow them so closely that I wasn't giving myself enough creative breathing room, which is something I've been working on quite a bit over the last few years. Which is funny to me looking back on this, because I'm pretty sure I didn't look up references for the wolf creatures because I wanted them to have that vaguely just uncanny valley kind of vibe to them. But I need more help drawing dogs than I do with humans, so I'm not really sure why I looked up references for one and not the other. So when I scrapped it, I did end up looking up references and just making sure I actually knew what wolves looked like before I tried to capture that ominous feeling. This is also from a period where I was really anxious about people seeing my sketches. I used to draw my sketches on like a separate canvas and then drop them into a fresh one. That way Procreate wouldn't pick up a lot of me like messing around with lines and putting things down and messing up and making ugly drawings until I get things right, or just the little notes that I'd leave for myself sometimes. And that's also something that I've stopped doing. I think seeing the sketching process is part of the fun. So when I start sharing my more recent work, you'll see that more and more. And if you follow me on TikTok, you'll see that I post my sketches quite frequently now. I also think that I went through a pretty big style change right smack in the middle of a project I was working on in what I think was 2023, and that was around the time that I realized I needed to work on my reference dependence, so to speak. I still use references, but I've changed the way that I use them. Rather than using them as a crutch, I use them to help me improve what I've already drawn, and I think that's resulted in my work being more stylized overall. And I think it's the most obvious in my Lunar Chronicles fan art. Between Cinder and Scarlet, you can see that I was really trying to change the way I was doing things, and then jumping into Crest, I feel like it's vastly different. And I am still grateful that all three of those pieces got to be in the Polish special editions, but I feel like it was probably a bad place for me to make such a drastic change because they were all, lined up together. They were supposed to fit together, but they're all so different. And in my defense, I didn't know that they were going to be published, so I was just making fan art for fun. And I will admit that I am still feeling pretty stagnant, or at least I've gone back to that feeling with my art that I'm making right now in 2026. But it's not quite the same feeling. I don't think it's so much a dependence on references as much as me realizing that I do a lot of static poses and expressions. So that's something that I'm working on right now, but it'll probably be a while before we get to those videos, so I can talk about it another time. In the second half of the video, you can see that I'm putting a lot more effort into the background. That's another thing that I'm still working on. So it's interesting to go look back and I can visibly see myself making this attempt. And I don't think I quite hit the mark, just because there are some things that I would do differently if I did this again. Most notably, the fact that there are no leaves or debris on the ground. For someone who literally grew up in the San Bernardino National Forest, you think that I would have caught that sooner. Either way, I think it works in this piece because it adds to this almost limbo type vibe that the piece has. There's this sort of empty etherealness that I really like. I also like the use of the warmer toned shadows, which is not something that I do very often. And I love how peachy and pink everything is. So the original title of this piece was Girls' Night. I don't know why I named it that. I guess I just thought it was funny. I changed it to Ghost Dance later because I thought it made more sense. But it'll always be Girls' Night in my heart. Don't we all just want to dance in the woods with some spectral wolves? Anyway, that's about all I have to say today. I hope you like it, and I hope my voiceover was sufficient until I can get a microphone. I hope it wasn't too bad. I'm really trying to get over my fear of speaking. Even on TikTok, I'm trying to stop myself from going right to the text-to-speech option. So I hope you like it, and hopefully I will be back soon with another one. Thank you.